Good day, everyone. I am Hanijel Sibuslon, together with my co-reporter, Mrs. Ramil Andrea B. Catini, Genevieve Largo, and Stephanie Bracero. We are presenting and examining the life and work of Emerita Quito, her influence and contribution to what we call Filipino philosophy. But first, we need to know who is Emerita Quito is. So Emerita Quito was a prominent Filipino philosopher. She was born in Sampaloc, Manila in 1919 and passed away in 2005. She was the first Filipino woman to earn a doctorate in philosophy, which she obtained from the University of Santo Tomas in 1945. Her dissertation was titled The Concept of Man in Rizal. She had a long career as an educator and a scholar. She taught philosophy at various universities in the Philippines, including the University of Santo Tomas, Philippine Women's University, and De La Salle University. Her philosophical works centered on themes like Filipino identity and consciousness. Her major books she authored include The Filipino Mind, Ethics, the Philosophical Discipline of Action, Fundamental Moral Theology, and Philosophy of Man selected readings. From that bibliography of Emerita Quito, and by the power of brainstorming and collaborative efforts, we're able to create a thesis entitled Emerita Quito's Use of Native Language in Understanding Philosophy. So abstract that will serve as an overview of this entire paper. So this paper examines the perspective of Filipino philosopher Emerita Quito regarding the use of native languages in understanding and advancing philosophy in the Philippines. Quito argues that expressing philosophical ideas in vernacular languages is the key to making philosophy more accessible and relevant to the essence of Filipino people. So this passage clearly explains the views of Emerita Quito, a Filipino philosopher, on the significance of using native languages in the development and comprehensions of philosophy in the Philippines. Quito advocated for the expression of philosophical concepts in local languages as a means to ensure philosophy is more accessible and aligned with the core identity of Filipinos. She critiques the tendency of Filipino academics to retreat into English translation due to the complexity of translating concepts into Filipino. So the paper analyzes Quito's view that comprehending folk philosophy and belief system embedded in indigenous languages is crucial for nurturing distinctly Filipino philosophical tradition. So Quito's criticism of Filipino academics' inclination to resort to English translation because of the challenges involved in translating intricate philosophical concepts into Filipino. So this paper delves into Quito's perspective that grasping the folk philosophy and belief system rooted in the native languages as essential in fostering a unique and genuinely Filipino philosophical tradition. So this implies that understanding indigenous languages deeply is crucial for preserving and developing a philosophical heritage specific to Filipino culture and identity. Introduction. So Emerita Quito is very concerned about the state of philosophy in the Philippines. She highlighted the importance of using the native language as a key factor in understanding philosophy. So by definition, a native language is referred to as the primary language or a first dialect learned by individual or first used by the parent or guardian with a child. For Quito, the real spirit and experiences of people can only be fully expressed in their native tongue. Therefore, the use of Tagalog or Filipino, the language of Cebuano, Ilocano, or Bicolano, plays a vital role in Quito's writing and developing Filipino philosophy. Emerita Quito talked about the status, problems, reflected thoughts, and lack of importance of it in the country. So this passage emphasizes Emerita Quito's deep concern regarding the condition of philosophy in the Philippines. She asserts that utilizing the native language is pivotal in comprehending philosophy. She believes that the genuine essence and lived experiences of a community can be accurately conveyed only through their indigenous language. Therefore, Quito emphasizes the use of languages like Tagalog or Filipino, Cebuano, Ilocano or Bicolano in her work is crucial for the development of Filipino philosophy. So Quito believes that one of the hurdles that prevent Filipino philosophy from reaching its success is the problem of language, particularly its own native language. She argued that only when we can express the ideas of philosophies in language that many of us can understand, can we excel and be our own master in this field. So Quito strongly argues that the barrier hindering the success of Filipino philosophy lies in the challenge of language, particularly the native language itself. Quito contains that the true progress in philosophy can be attained or can be achieved only when philosophical ideas can be articulated in a languages comprehensible to a broader audience. So by expressing philosophical concepts in a language familiar to many, it eliminates the complex veil often associated with philosophy, thus making it accessible to everyone, not just for scholar. In essence, translating philosophical ideas into the mother tongue allows for a clearer understanding. So this is because again it diminishes the perplexing facade of philosophy, making it understandable for everyone, not just for scholars, since it is now translated into our mother tongue. So to be able to reach this state, the solution is not just to create a pure Filipino philosophy untainted by foreign influence, but to have philosophy translated and expressed in our own words. A careful study about Emerita Quito ideal of the use of native language in understanding philosophy might be fully evolved into a true language, but it is very difficult for those who do not belong in the Tagalog ethno-linguistic bloc. So, Emerita Quito viewed the solution to achieve a broader understanding of philosophy is not solely about developing a purely Filipino philosophy untouched by foreign influence. Instead, it advocates for translating and expressing philosophical concepts in a way that resonate with the native language and cultural context. In addition, some said that are just thoughts that can never be translated and has no equivalence to Filipino words. But for Quito, that is more passionate about contributing something to Filipino philosophy, she mentioned that ang isinalin namin ay hindi ang mga salita kundi ang diwa. In particular, this proposed thesis aims to examine Emerita Quito's intention of using her native language in pursuit of understanding philosophy in the Philippines, especially when she talks about the importance of philosophy to oneself and to the country, but mentions how thinking is so rare nowadays, given the fact that people desire things that are instant. She also said that the media somehow contributes to this phenomenon. She argues that people now fail to think for themselves since they always conform to what society dictates. So the researchers argues that the examinations of Emerita Quito is necessary for the current state of philosophy in the Philippines. The researchers was able to draw a gap between the challenges of how to properly use our reasoning in a fast-paced society. In connection with Quito's intention of incorporating his native language into his understanding of philosophy, this research might contribute to help solve the long debate about the use of native language in Filipino philosophy. So we, the researcher, identified a gap related to the challenges of effectively utilizing reasoning in a society that operates at a rapid pace, connecting this with Quito's aim of integrating the native language into the comprehension of philosophy. This research aims to potentially contribute to resolve the long-standing debate about using native languages in Filipino philosophy. It implies that by examining Quito's ideas and their relationship with reasoning in a fast-paced society, there is a potential to provide insight or solution to the ongoing discourse regarding the incorporation of native languages in Filipino philosophical discussion.
So this is our review of related literature. So Liwanag 2016 discusses Quito's views on issues preventing Filipino philosophy from advancing, especially the perception of philosophy as impractical. Quito argues that translating concepts into accessible language is key for comprehension and nurturing an indigenous philosophical tradition. Quito 1990, she critiques the tendency to retreat into English instead of engaging with the complexity of Filipino vocabulary. Emerita Quito and Filipino philosophy, Santos Dainish Samantha. So in his work, Liwanag 2016 delves into the perspective of Florinto H. Batch, so Quinones on the obstacle hindering the progress of Filipino philosophy. Quinones contend that the perception of philosophy in the practical discipline is a significant barrier. He emphasizes the crucial role of translating philosophical concept into easily understanding language in fostering comprehension and nurturing a native philosophical tradition. So, Quito on 1990, Quinones criticized the inclination to resort to English instead of grappling with the intricacies of Filipino language. He argues that embracing the Filipino language is essential for developing a robust and authentic philosophical discourse that is deeply rooted in the Filipino experience. So by embracing the Filipino language and translating the philosophical concept into accessible form, Filipino philosopher can foster a thriving indigenous philosophical tradition that contributes meaningfully to the global philosophical landscape. In this paper, Quito identifies two main issues that hinder the advancement of Filipino philosophy. So first is the perception of philosophy as impractical. So philosophy is often seen as an abstract and impractical discipline that has no relevance to everyday life. This perception makes it difficult to attract students to the field and to gain the respect of the wider Filipino community. So second is, this is connected to our title or to our paper. So this is the lack of accessible Filipino language resources. Most philosophical works in the Philippines are written in English, which makes them inaccessible to the majority of Filipino who do not speak English fluently. This lack of accessible resources make it so difficult for Filipinos to engage with philosophical and ideas to develop their own philosophical tradition. So, for Quito work is important because it highlights the importance of language in the development of Filipino philosophy. She argues that Filipino philosophy cannot flourish without the development of a rich and nuanced Filipino language philosophical vocabulary. By translating philosophical concept into Filipino, Quito is helping to lay the groundwork for a more vibrant and inclusive Filipino philosophical tradition. So next is Martin 2006. Assess Quito's positions that employing native language is necessary for Filipino philosophy to authentically articulate lived experience rather than just disseminate foreign ideas reductively. So Martin agrees with Quito that The use of native language is essential for Filipino philosophy to develop its own authentic voice and to avoid becoming a mere conduit for Western philosophical ideas. He argues that philosophy is not simply a matter of translating concepts from one language to another, but also of understanding the conceptual framework that underlie those languages. By using Filipino language, Filipino philosopher can better articulate the lived experience of Filipinos and develop a philosophy that is relevant to their own culture and society. So, Superbella 2021 summarizes Quito's perspective on grounding philosophy in the cultural worldviews and concepts embedded in the language of various Filipino ethno-linguistic communities. So, Sobrivilla's account of Quito's perspective on grounding philosophy in the cultural worldviews and concepts embedded in the language of various Filipino ethno-linguistic communities. So, Sobrevilla encapsulates Quito's views that Philippine philosophy should be firmly rooted in the cultural worldviews and concepts inherent in the language of the diverse ethno-linguistic communities of the Philippines. So, Quito emphasizes that employing this native language is crucial for Filipino philosophy to authentically express the engage with the lived experience and realities of Filipinos by drawing upon the rich linguistic tapestry of Philippines. Filipino philosophy can transcend mere translation of Western and ideas and establish its own unique voice and identity. So, Demeterio III, Firilio Petronilo, and Leslie Ann Eliwanag 2008 provide a comparative analysis of the similarities and differences between Emerita Quito and Mary Jan Mananzanas. Though on Filipina philosophy, their study examines Quito's advocacy for the vernacular articulation of concepts based on lived realities. Next is several scholars, including Culver 1998 and Salazar 1974, echo Quito's emphasis on language as an embodiment of national spirit that was disrupted by colonialism but can be revitalized. So, several scholars, including Culver 1998 and Salazar 1974, align with Quito's assertion that language serves as a tangible representation of national spirit. They contend that colonialism disrupted this inherent connection, but its revitalization is essential for claiming and fostering a distinct Filipino identity. By preserving and promoting Filipino language, this scholar advocate for the restoration of cultural foundation upon which a vibrant Filipino philosophy can flourish. So this is the materials and the methods. So this research utilizes a qualitative document analysis approach to examine Emerita Quito's writings on the role of native language in the Philippines philosophy. So this is the primary documents analysis include. So this is the 3 books by Emerita Quito. So Quito focused on Filipino philosophy, culture, and language. Ang Filosofiya, Batayan ng Pambansang Kultura, Philosophy, Basis of National Culture, and the State of Philosophy in the Philippines. Second is the journal, articles, and book chapters by Quito related to language, education, ethics, and epistemology in Filipino philosophy. So the third one is published interviews with Quito on the state of philosophy in the Philippines and the need for native language articulation. So next is secondary source materials were also examined for a contextual information and perspective including these three. So first is the academic journal, articles analyzing Quito's views on language and philosophy, commentaries on Quito's work in combined volume on Filipino philosophy, reviews of Quito's book in philosophical publication. So, a qualitative content analysis was conducted by carefully reading the identified materials and systematically coding a theme related to Quito's arguments regarding native language usage. Coded themes were categorized to identify patterns in Quito's positions and claim. Attention was given to the reasoning, evidence, and rhetorical strategies employed by Quitos to advocate for native language expression of Filipino philosophy.
And now, I will be discussing the results. The analysis shows Quito strongly believes using Philippine languages is vital for developing truly Filipino ways of thinking and philosophy. She says expressing ideas in foreign languages hides the unique perspectives of Filipinos. Quito also argues that connecting philosophy to everyday Filipino language and culture makes it more relevant and understandable to ordinary people. She emphasizes not just translating words but capturing the essence of concepts in native languages in a way that reflects actual life experiences. Additionally, Quito points to the rich wellspring of grassroots Filipino philosophy found in traditional worldviews and values that should be explored in native tongues. She connects using Philippine languages and philosophy to building national pride by philosophically freeing ourselves from colonial ways of thinking. Quito admits Filipino languages have limits in expressing complex philosophical ideas. However, she argues that languages can adapt and grow to meet the needs of philosophy. And finally, the research found Quito sees native languages not just as a translation tool, but as a key way to shape, communicate, and progress a new Filipino philosophical tradition profoundly tied to the spirit and history of the Filipino people. Such languages have a central role in her vision of an entirely Filipino philosophy. Next is the discussion. The analysis of Quito's writings reveals her impassioned view that leveraging native languages is imperative for the emergence of authentic Filipino philosophy that captures the experiences and worldviews of the people, rather than simply appropriating foreign frameworks. However, there are notable challenges to employing languages like Tagalog, Cebuano, and Ilocano in philosophical discourses. A persistent critic, Quito acknowledges as whether vernacular tongues have the lexical richness, semantic complexity, and conceptual precision to convey philosophical ideas. Martin, 2006. Quito argues that Filipino languages are evolving and technical language can be adapted or created to meet philosophical needs. However, opponents contend key meanings and nuances could be lost in translation if abstract ideas cannot be adequately captured, risking the dilution of complex theories. Sobrevilla, 2021. There are also questions concerning the universal applicability of regionally grounded philosophy articulated in ethnolinguistic terms. Would works rendered in Bisaya or Ilocano limit the audience and discourage widespread adoption? Quito might hold insight for those outside the culture, even in translation. Quito might counter that accessible grassroots philosophy embedded in native worldviews still holds insight for those outside the culture, even in translation. Yet critics argue profound ideas require a lingua franca like English to maximize reach. Additionally, where Quito sees sees the native language expression as a post-colonial linguistic liberation. Others point to the practical realities of English dominating Philippine academia and the global discourse. They contend meshed coexistence of Philippine tongues and English is inevitable for communicating ideas. Martin, 2021. Whereas Quito pushes for vernacular primacy. Although Quito makes a compelling case for grounding Filipino philosophy in the languages and lived realities of the people as empowerment, there are still questions about languages adequacy for complex ideas, applicability beyond regional context, and practical viability today. The strengths and limitations of the review remain debated. In short, Quito still believes that using Philippine languages is very important in creating our own Filipino philosophy. Although there are many challenges by using vernacular languages in philosophical discourse, even though there are still critics that would say that vernacular languages are not complex enough to express philosophical ideas, or others argue that if we use vernacular terms in our Filipino philosophy, that it will limit the audience of those philosophical works. However, for Quito, that language are capable in evolving itself to facilitate the growth of Filipino philosophy. And she also said that even though our languages or vernacular language would be translated, it would still convey to the other people, even they have different nationalities.
Here's our conclusion in this paper. So, this paper has analyzed philosopher Emerita Quito's perspective on the vital role of native languages in nurturing an authentic Philippine philosophical tradition rooted in the experiences and beliefs of the people. Quito makes a passionate argument that articulating our ideas in vernacular tongues is key to making philosophy accessible and relevant to ordinary Filipinos, countering the dominance of English and foreign frameworks. So, this paper explores philosopher Emerita Quito's view that native languages play a crucial role in fostering an authentic Philippine philosophical tradition grounded in the Filipino people's experiences and beliefs. So, Quito passionately argues that expressing ideas in vernacular languages is essential for making philosophy accessible and meaningful to ordinary people, or the Filipino people, challenging the dominance of English and foreign frameworks. So next. So the examination of Quito's writings reveals her view of language as essential for capturing philosophical concepts in terms reflecting the cultural worldview, values, and lived realities of specific ethno-linguistic groups. She sees the use of languages like Tagalog, Ilocano, or Bisaya as both a linguistic decolonization, freeing Filipino minds, as well as a national building project to advance a distinct Filipino way of thinking. So, for Emerita Quito, language like Tagalog, Ilocano, and Bisaya are more than just tools of communication. They are keys to unlocking a uniquely Filipino philosophy. By using these languages to express philosophical ideas, Quito believes that Filipinos can break free from the colonial mentality and build a national identity rooted in their own cultural experiences and values.
This linguistic decolonization is not just about language, but about reclaiming the right to think and express oneself in ways that resonate with the Filipino soul. So next is, however, critics persist regarding the adequacy of the native lexicon for philosophical discourse, risk of dilution or loss of meaning in translation, limited resonance of regionally grounded philosophies, and the practical challenges of displacing English in academic settings. This highlighted important nuances in this debate. However, critics that native languages may not be adequate for philosophical discourse, that translation can lead to loss of meaning, the regionally grounded philosophies may not have wide appeal, and that displacing English in academic settings would be impractical. So this paper acknowledges these challenges. So here's the implications. Implication 1. The implications of Quito's perspectives warrant ongoing analysis, both for informing the emergence of Filipino philosophy and from a language policy standpoint. Quito's advocacy underscores how language evolving to incorporate abstract, technical vocabulary could enrich the expressiveness of Philippine tongues. The ability to articulate complex ideas in vernacular languages has significance for study democratization. Implication 2. Quito's view also has implications regarding the post-colonial project of reclaiming epistemic spaces dominated by Euro-American philosophical traditions and English language hegemony. While practical constraints exist in academia investigating scholarly discourse where Filipino ways of conceptualizing are prominent rather than marginalized matters. So these issues require further theorizing and discussion. Recommendations. Recommendation 1. Further research examining the realization of Quito's vision is recommended, such as case studies of scholarship striving to articulate sophisticated philosophical notions in Philippine languages, investigating the creativity, strategies, and lexicography involved would offer insights from a pragmatic lens. The technical and cultural feasibility of predominantly Filipino language philosophy teaching also warrants explanation. So, recommendation 2. The themes in Quito's work could inform research in decolonizing curriculum and proposing counter-discourses challenges Western paradigms dominance in Philippine social science and humanities education. Her thought highlights avenues for cultivating post-colonial consciousness and reclaiming epistemic diversity. Pedagogical approaches blending vernacular articulation and global philosophical dialogue could also be investigated as part of for this project of intellectual deimperialization. So that's all for our study about Emerita Quito. Thank you very much and God bless us all.
References: Quito, Emerita S. The State of Philosophy in the Philippines, 1983. Santos Dainish Samantha, Emerita Quito and Filipino Philosophy, 2018. Liwanag Leslie Ann L. Ang Pilosopiya ni Emerita S. Quito, Critique, an online journal of philosophy 10, number 1, 2016, 54-82. Abines Rodrigo D. and Jerwin M. Mahagway, Dekolonisasyon para sa Diwang Pilipino ni Emerita S. Quito, Isang Pagpubugay. Critique, an online journal of philosophy 2, number 2, 2017.
Quito, Emerita, ang Pilosopiya, Batayan ng Pambansang Kultura, A Life of Philosophy, Festschrift, in honor of Emerita S. Quito, 1990, 684-89. Demetriot III Fiorillo, A Critical Reflection on My Reading and Rereading of Emerita Quito's Thoughts on the Underdevelopment and Hope for the Development of Filipino Philosophy. Philosophia, International Journal of Philosophy 221, number 2, 2020, 169-186. Demetria Fiorilia, PA, Rereading Emerita Quito's Thoughts Concerning the Underdevelopment of Filipino Philosophy. FPA Demetrius Philosophy and Cultural Theory, page 1998. Thank you. Reporters and researchers, Buslon Hanigel C., Bracero Stepan M., Catani Ramil Andrea B., Lordgo Genevieve C., Section A183, Ibifilo, Teaching 4A.